The God King is dead. The Empire fractures like cheap IKEA furniture after a particularly aggressive move. Across the stars, a great hunger stirs. Not the metaphorical kind, but the literal, galaxy-consuming, reality-digesting kind that makes Galactus look like he's on a f***ing diet. The warp bleeds. Cults rise, pirates raid. Space Marines probably exist somewhere, but they're too busy being legally distinct to help. This is the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war, tax evasion, and customer service representatives who've been dead for 3 centuries, but still insist your warranty has expired. And you? You're piloting a starship held together by duct tape, religious chants, and whatever the mechanic found in the kitchen bin after the last guy disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Your crew consists of a screaming mechanic who communicates exclusively through violence, a medic with a YouTube diploma in advanced flesh repair, and a priest who keeps licking the warp drive for luck while muttering about the Emperor's divine toaster. This isn't a story about victory. This isn't about saving the galaxy or restoring order to a fractured empire. This is about surviving long enough to realize the galaxy isn't just hungry, it's starving. It's been starving for aeons. And you're on the fucking menu. Welcome to Void War, where FTL meets Warhammer 40k in a cosmic horror blender operated by someone who's never read the instruction manual and is pretty sure the warranty voided itself out of spite. This is the game where your biggest enemy isn't the pirates or the cultists or the demons. It's the slowly dawning realization that you're not the protagonist of this story. You're the appetizer. So grab your macro lens, stock up on missiles you can't afford, and say goodbye to Jeff. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, even your crew members with B-Techs in public service are destined for cosmic significance, usually as fuel for eldritch horror engines. The void cools, the galaxy rumbles, and somewhere in the darkness, something ancient and terrible is setting the table. Let's feed the beast. Right, so here's the situation. The God King, that's the Emperor, but legally distinct enough that Games Workshop's lawyers can't break down my door at 3 AM, has shuffled off this mortal coil, died, kicked the bucket, gone to that great golden throne in the sky where the Wi-Fi actually works and customer service doesn't put you on hold for 17 hours. What happens when the central authority figure of a galaxy-spanning empire suddenly stops breathing? Total fucking collapse. It's like if the internet went down permanently, except instead of people complaining on Twitter, entire star systems are forming death cults and declaring war on mathematics. Chaos cults crawl out of the woodwork like cockroaches after you turn on the lights. Pirates decide that property law was more of a suggestion anyway. The Imperial Navy splits into 17 different factions, each convinced they're the ones who truly understand what the God King wanted, despite the fact that none of them ever actually talked to him and his last words were probably, "Did somebody leave the stove on?" And in this festival of civilizational collapse, you, Ferdinando, the Imperial Exile, are piloting a ship that can best be described as structurally ambitious. This isn't just any ship, this is a cursed Imperial relic, the kind of vessel that has a documented history of eating its previous captains. The lights flicker when you look at them wrong. The life support systems make sounds that violate several laws of physics. The navigation computer occasionally displays coordinates for places that don't exist, and when you try to go there, reality politely asks you to stop. Your crew consists of 2 Imperial enforcers, disposable meatbag number 1 and Jeff. Jeff, who earned his qualifications for a B-Tech in public services instead of, actual military training. Jeff, who will spend the entire game forgetting his assignments like a goldfish with ADHD. Jeff, who somehow graduated from Imperial Guard training despite the fact that he appears to be functionally allergic to following basic instructions. But here's the beautiful part. None of this matters. Because the galaxy isn't a map you navigate. It's not a collection of systems you conquer or trade routes you optimize. The galaxy is a mouth, and you're flying straight into its throat. See, what the tutorial doesn't tell you, what the captain doesn't understand yet as he cheerfully pilots his death trap through the void, is that space itself has developed an appetite. The warp isn't just a dangerous alternate dimension where demons live. It's a digestive system. Every ship that travels through it, every soul that touches its currents, every Imperial exile who thinks he's just trying to make his way in a chaotic galaxy. They're all just nutrients being processed by something vast and incomprehensibly hungry. The pirates aren't just stealing cargo, they're feeding the void. The cults aren't worshipping dark gods, they're preparing the main course. And Fernando thinks he's the captain of his own destiny, making clever tactical decisions and upgrading his weapon system. He's actually just a very expensive meal, with delusions of agency. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Right now, Fernando is still blissfully unaware that he's signed up for the galaxy's most elaborate dinner service. Right now, he's just a broke Imperial exile with a ship held together by prayers and spite, trying to figure out why his macro lance only has 2 charges, and whether Jeff has actually ever fired a weapon before, or just waves it around hopefully. The feast hasn't begun yet, but the galaxy is setting the table, sharpening its knives, and wondering whether Fernando pairs better with a nice Chianti, or just raw cosmic horror. Time to find out. Right, so we start in the tutorial because I'm too lazy to start a new run for this video, and I thrive on thirst timing games like some kind of masochistic speedrunner who's convinced that reading instruction manuals is for weaklings. The game runs us through how everything works. It's literally just FTL, man. I played a fucking indie game before. I know how to assign power. I understand that shooting the enemy makes them more dead. This isn't really rocket science. Essentially, our captain is Fernando. Because I just came up with that name on the spot, and don't look at the actual footage, where it probably says something completely different, like Captain Serious Important Face. What is this script, man? An Imperial exile piloting a legally distinct, totally not Warhammer 40k inspired vessel that makes the Event Horizon look like a luxury cruise liner with complimentary Wi-Fi and a functional customer service department. Fernando commands a crew of exactly 2 Imperial enforcers. Disposable meatbag number 1, and Jeff. Jeff, whose official job description is to man the shields and weapon systems, or more realistically, to stand around aimlessly doing nothing after I forget to reassign them to their positions post-boarding because I have the tactical awareness of a goldfish with ADHD and the IQ of the average person who frequents a Warhammer shop IRL. The tutorial cheerfully walks us through the basics. How to repair stuff. Hit it with a wrench until it stops sparking or starts sparking in a more pleasing pattern. How to assign power to systems, pray the reactor doesn't explode and take half the ship with it. How to blow up defenseless, weaponless enemy vessels. Thanks for the moral complexity game, really setting us up for nuanced ethical decisions here. And most importantly, how to board enemy ships by launching what amounts to an unguided torpedo filled with Meatbag and Jeff at the same time, and hoping for the best. Boarding successful, the game announces cheerfully, as if launching your crew into space inside a metal tube with the aerodynamic properties of a brick is a perfectly reasonable military strategy that definitely won't result in everyone dying horribly. We start with 2 weapons, a storm cannon that shoots 2 shots, and another weapon that shoots 1 shot. Both take exactly as long to charge, and one is demonstrably more useful than the other. Take a wild fucking guess which one Fernando prioritizes. Spoiler alert, it's not the logical choice, because Fernando's decision-making process operates on the principle that if something seems obviously correct, there must be a hidden catch that justifies doing the opposite. Clearly Fernando reasons while staring at his weapon loadout. The weapon that shoots twice as many projectiles is somehow inferior to the one that shoots half as many. This is probably some kind of advanced military strategy that they don't teach in basic training. I'm so smart for figuring this out. But as our target, a defenseless hijacked frigate that poses about as much threat as a particularly aggressive toaster, falls apart faster than my mental state after 0 sleep and 3 energy drinks whilst editing at 4 AM. We're set loose on the galaxy with nothing more than a ship held together by hopes, dreams, and duct tape. Not much else. Definitely not competent crew members or functional life support systems or any kind of backup plan for when things go inevitably wrong. The game's opening tutorial ends with what can only be described as aggressive optimism about Fernando's prospects for survival. Congratulations, it essentially says. You've successfully completed the basic training for cosmic warfare. Now go forth and definitely don't die horribly in the first 5 minutes of actual combat. The game's opening hours are basically Space Poverty Simulator 2024, now with more existential dread. My main goal, as is normal in FTL, for me anyway, is to speedrun maximum shields because defense is the only thing standing between Fernando and becoming cosmic churn for whatever's hunting in the void. Oh, and also something about ascending to the Vault of Souls to achieve cosmic significance or whatever. But who gives a fuck about ultimate destiny when there are immediate concerns, like will Jeff remember how to operate basic ship systems, and do we have enough duct tape to keep the hull from spontaneously developing new ventilation holes? We carry on through the first system, blowing up several small vessels that attempt to stop us, and reinvesting our ill-gotten gains. Scrap metal because apparently the galactic economy runs on literal garbage and good intentions. Back into the ship. It's like a cosmic recycling program, except instead of helping the environment, we're helping ourselves become marginally less likely to die in the next 5 minutes. We encounter our first trader and buy a grand total of nothing because we're broke as fuck and can't afford basic necessities. The merchant looks at our pathetic scrap metal collection with the kind of pity usually reserved for street performers who've forgotten their instruments. Perhaps you'd be interested in this lovely air freshener, they offer helpfully. It's only 12,000 scrap metal and really improves the ambiance of your life support systems. Can we pay an exposure? Fernando asks hopefully. We're building a really compelling portfolio of near-death experiences that would look great in your testimonials. Then we come across a mining operation that we decide to investigate because Fernando has the survival instincts of a lemming with vertigo and a gambling addiction. For our troubles, we get invaded by a conqueror. An enemy that we can theoretically handle, but of course, I try to vent him into space and make him die of oxygen deprivation because that seems like the most efficient solution. Except I forgot that our doors don't have locks because we're too broke to afford basic safety features like the ability to prevent unwanted guests from wandering around our ship at will. So instead of being sucked into the vacuum of space, he just walks away from the lack of oxygen like he's avoiding a persistent telemarketer. Until we have to gank him 3-on-1 with Fernando getting personally involved to kill him. Excuse me, the Conqueror probably thinks while strolling away from our improvised death trap. This room seems to be experiencing some atmospheric difficulties. I'll just relocate to somewhere with more breathable working conditions. Perhaps that nice corridor over there where the human captain is screaming about his tactical genius. This was a sign of things to come. A portent. A cosmic warning that Fernando's command decisions would consistently involve choosing the most complicated possible solution to simple problems, usually resulting in unnecessary violence, crew endangerment, and Jeff somehow making everything worse for the sheer power of his incompetence. But we do score our first major victory when we destroy an Imperial scout, which gives us a weapon that becomes an indispensable part of our arsenal. The Macro Lance, a weapon that only has 2 charges that replenish on every jump, but goes through shields and does 3 damage per hit. This becomes essential to our strategy, because our other weapons are so catastrophically shit at penetrating shields, that they require shooting more than 1 shot per business day to be effective. Finally, Fernando declares while admiring his new weapon, something that works the way it's supposed to. This macro lance will surely be the foundation of our tactical superiority, and definitely won't become a crutch that we rely on because everything else is garbage. We pick up a new recruit, an Imperial Marshal, who we find floating in the wreckage of a broken ship. Is this winning? Are we successfully operating a military vessel? Signs point to absolutely fucking not. But at least our crew roster is expanding, even if it's expanding with people whose previous ships exploded under circumstances that remain diplomatically unspecified. Welcome aboard, Fernando cheerfully announces to the shell shock survivor. Don't mind the smell, that's just the life support system having an identity crisis. And ignore Jeff, he's learning to operate weapons through a process that can charitably be described as enthusiastic trial and error. I don't know why I hate Jeff so much, honestly this video could be renamed like, fuck Jeff, bro. And that's when we encounter our first possessed scout. A ship that basically pilots itself, infested with demons and lacking any oxygen, which makes boarding a suicidal proposition that only someone with Fernando's optimistic relationship with reality would consider. But fortunately for us, a lack of crew equals a lack of ability to repair subsystems, so we blow up their shields and then the ship itself while pretending this was always the plan. See, Fernando explains to his crew while the demon ship burns in the void behind them. Sometimes the best strategy is to avoid hand-to-hand combat with entities from beyond the veil of reality. It's all about the tactical flexibility, and definitely not about being too scared to board a ship full of screaming hellspawn. As we reach the end of the sector and approach the Stargate, legally distinct, I swear to whatever cosmic entities are taking notes, Fernando faces his first major decision. Venture into techno-cult territory with the Not Mechanicus, or explore the Infernal Sea, a collection of systems stuck between hell and real space. and Fernando being a rational captain who can definitely be trusted with life or death decisions and has clearly learned from his previous tactical innovations, makes the obvious choice. We're going to hell. Because if there's one thing Fernando has learned so far, it's that while presented with two options, one reasonable, one absolutely catastrophic, the catastrophic choice probably has better loot and definitely won't result in his crew being slowly consumed by cosmic horrors that view mortal consciousness as a light snack. What's the worst that could happen, Fernando asked cheerfully while plotting a course towards literal damnation. And somewhere in the void, something ancient and patient begins setting the table. So, we venture into hell because Fernando is totally sane and can definitely be trusted with these decisions. And honestly, beside the corrupted ships, flesh things trying to steal Meatbag and Jeff from under me, and the constant existential dread, it's not that bad in hell. The Wi-Fi is terrible and there's no customer service. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with this. What the hell was I on when I wrote this? But that's basically the same as anywhere else in the galaxy. Oh yeah, we also picked up 2 more crew members. An engineer from a broken ship and some other guy who I'm not entirely sure when we acquired, but he just showed up one day. I'm not naming them because I'll lose track, but they're here doing things, probably. Jeff is still Jeff, which is to say, as always, functionally useless, but enthusiastic about it at least. Hell is essentially the same as anywhere else, but with more pulsating flesh and stars that I swear are trying to sell me extended car warranties. If I want a better deal, I apparently need to get ever so closer to the screaming void. For some reason, there are techno-cult vessels here too, so we blow one up for a relic because I like having random skulls in my locker. Besides the swirling sky that definitely wants to eat me, we're chill. The factions we encounter are like a cosmic horror convention organized by someone with severe organizational issues and a drinking problem. There are the pirates who operate on the business model of sell you your own cargo at 300% markup while somehow maintaining that customer service smile. They're basically space Walmart, except more honest about wanting to rob you. Then there are the cultists, who politely ask to borrow your lungs for their dark rituals. Very courteous about it, really. Excuse me, sir, would you mind terribly if we used your respiratory system for our blood sacrifices? We'll give it back, promise. Well, the bits that don't get consumed by eldritch entities. The warranty is a bit complicated, but we have excellent customer testimonials from previous participants. And the techno-priests, the not mechanicus, who offer to cleanse your reactor systems, then steal your last coolant rod while muttering binary prayers. It's like calling tech support, except instead of putting you on hold for 3 hours, they actively sabotage your equipment while charging you for the privilege. There's some boarding action taken against us, but not much seems able to stand against the tried and true strategy of beating things to death until they stop moving. We pick up a twin disruptor at some point, a weapon that shoots 2 ion shots, disrupting systems, and making our other weapons somewhat viable by removing the shields that normally laugh at our pathetic damage output. Not that this stops Jeff from completely missing his shots. This is probably why he has a B.Tech in public service instead of a real degree. We fight some worshippers of Gorgoth, the blood cult, I think, but it's hard to keep track of all the cults. Honestly, if there was a tax cult worshipping the Lord IRS here, I wouldn't be fucking surprised. The galaxy has cults for everything. There's probably a cult devoted to optimizing spreadsheet formulas and another one that worships the cosmic significance of Domino's delivery times complaints. We even stopped to save an Imperial vessel from a corrupt cruiser. Did they thank us? Of course not. Instead, they drop a small thank you package behind them as they flee. What the fuck, guys? I just saved your asses from literal demons and you leave me a tip like I'm a space Uber driver. At this point, our shields are at level 3, but that doesn't stop us from getting fucked by warped events that just casually make holes in the fabric of reality occur in the fucking hallway. Because apparently in hell, basic structural integrity is more of a suggestion than a requirement. Warning, the ship's computer announces cheerfully. Reality breach detected in Corridor 7. Please mind the gap between dimensions. We stop at one event to observe an unidentified starship with a large gathering of otherworldly monstrosities engaging in strange rituals. They don't appreciate our scientific curiosity and start pouring towards us like cosmic horror ants who've just discovered someone left the interdimensional equivalent of a sandwich on the ground. So we run away, because Fernando might make terrible strategic decisions, but he's not completely suicidal. But not before Jeff twists his ankle during the escape. Fucking dumbass. We're fleeing from eldritch abominations in the void between dimensions, and Jeff somehow manages to injure himself while sitting in a chair. This man's capacity for finding new ways to be incompetent defies several laws of physics and at least 3 fundamental constants of the universe. We pick up several more crew members who will definitely survive the coming apocalypse and engage more war cult geezers. By now we've invested in a siege bombard, a weapon system that, for the low cost of 3 missiles, will blitz enemy vessels with randomly fired shots every 1.5 seconds when upgraded to maximum. This, combined with our disruptor, the macro lance, and whatever Jeff is pretending to operate, makes most battles a breeze. We've gone from desperately broke space hobos to accidentally competent harbingers of destruction, which feels like character growth but is probably just cosmic horror wearing a disguise. As we approach the sector before the final sector, Blood Cult territory, Fernando is feeling confident. The ship is upgraded, the crew is, well, they're present, and we've got enough firepower to reduce most problems to their component atoms. But confidence, as Fernando is about to learn, is just the galaxy's way of making the inevitable fail more entertaining. And somewhere in the cosmic distance, something vast and patient is already preparing the next course of its eternal feast. Time to find out what happens when you pledge your soul to eldritch entities, while Jeff continues to be aggressively mediocre at everything, and somehow makes it worse. As we land in war cult territory, we encounter a Shrine of Rage, a place where we can dedicate ourselves to the god of war. And Fernando, being a rational captain who has learned absolutely nothing from the previous decisions, thinks, you know what this situation needs? Religious extremism. So of course, we check it out. Landing in the system, we're instantly attacked. But by now we've achieved what I like to call accidentally overpowered status. Our siege bombard basically disables shields instantly, then pummels whatever's left until it destructs like a piñata filled with scrap metal instead of candy. We breeze through the encounter with the casual efficiency of someone who's forgotten that space combat is supposed to be difficult. We're given an option as we destroy the ship. Either leave like sensible people, or pledge ourselves to the god of war. And Fernando, whose decision-making process can best be described as, what would a reasonable person do? Then do the opposite. Obviously pledges his soul to cosmic violence. The moment we do, the system floods with chromic vessels, legally distinct Khorne worshippers. And we're given another choice. Retreat like cowards, or fight an entire battle fleet, because apparently Fernando's new life philosophy is why solve problems diplomatically when you can murder them. We fight, because obviously we fight. We destroy the first vessel with relative ease, collecting loot like we're playing a particularly violent slot machine. Then another vessel joins the fight, proclaiming itself as the champion of Crom. This was kinda scary because what if he's too powerful for an accidentally competent murder machine? The doubt was short-lived. The champion fell just as easily as everything else, because apparently pledging your soul to the god of war comes with a performance bonus. For our troubles, Fernando now has nightmares and can't rest to heal for free jumps. Thanks, game. This is a lesson, kids. Violence doesn't pay. Or maybe it does and I'm just stupid. The cosmic jury is still out on whether Fernando's blood oath was a masterstroke of tactical thinking, or the worst decision since someone decided to trust Jeff with weapon system. We carry on through the system, picking up psychers who can do actual magic. A blood mage and another mage who I gave the ability to set rooms on fire. Thankfully, they use this power on enemy ships instead of ours. I'm noticing an increase in chromic vessels fighting us, but that might just be because we're in war territory, and not necessarily because Fernando has a strange glowing mark branded onto his hand that definitely does not pulse with eldritch energy during combat. Who knows? In this sector, we make our final upgrades before facing whatever cosmic horror awaits us at the end. We get a missile launcher to complement our siege bombard, ensuring we can punch through shields even if our disruptors and macro lance fail us. Fernando surveys his arsenal like a demented quartermaster. Siege bombard for overwhelming firepower, macro lance for precision strikes, twin disruptor for shield penetration, and Jeff for moral support, presumably. The ship has evolved from a flying death trap held together by prayer into a properly engineered instrument of violence. Our shields can tank direct hits from war gods. Our weapons can reduce dreadnoughts to scrap metal in seconds. Our crew has expanded from Fernando and 2 idiots to Fernando and a small army of idiots with magical powers. We're as ready as mortals can be for whatever lies beyond the final Stargate. And then we reach it. The Vault of Souls, hanging in space like a malevolent cathedral. Here we face the final boss, the Doom Engine. And the moment Fernando sees it, even his overconfidence wavers slightly. This isn't just a ship, it's a monument to suffering. a fusion of demon and machine that exists solely to end things. Maximum health bar, maximum shields. Crew roster that reads like a list of entities that shouldn't exist in any rational reality. The kind of enemy that would make lesser captains reconsider their life choices, their career paths, and possibly their entire relationship with mortality. But Fernando looks at this cosmic dreadnought, this engine of universal termination, this literal manifestation of galactic doom, and thinks, Doom engine? More like mid-engine. We deploy everything, siege bombard online, raining artillery into the void. Macro lance charging, preparing to punch through reality itself. Fernando's blood oath mark pulses with eldritch energy as his war god patron watches approvingly from whatever dimension violence calls home. Our tried and true strategy of bombard the fuck out of everything until it stops being a problem proves devastatingly effective. Turns out, when you've accidentally optimized your ship into a galaxy-ending war crime, even cosmic horror bosses become manageable problems. The Doom engine fights back with the fury of something that predates rational thought. Weapons that violate causality, shields that exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously, crew that include what can only be described as concentrated malice given form. But Fernando's crew, his beautiful disaster of Imperial rejects, reformed cultists, and Jeff, matches every escalation. Blood magic counters demon sorcery, siege bombardment overwhelms impossible shields. Even Jeff manages to not completely embarrass himself, which by his standards constitutes a miraculous performance. Halfway through, as we drop the engine's health to critical levels, reality itself seems to object to our success. All of its systems come back online at maximum health and overcharge. All dead crew respawns plus reinforcements that include things that definitely weren't there before. Our ship floods with manifested nightmares, demons that bleed physics violations, creatures whose existence makes geometry cry. Fernando's response to this cosmic escalation? Well, we've come this far. We adapt, we overcome, we continue the systematic dismantling of what was supposed to be the ultimate threat, while Jeff somehow manages to contribute meaningfully to the battle, which suggests either character growth or the universe's sense of humor reaching terminal levels of irony. The demons flooding our corridors, beaten to death with improvised weapons and righteous indignation. The impossible enemy reinforcements, reduced to component atoms by concentrated firepower and spite. The engine's reality warping death throes, ignored with the confidence of someone who's gotten this far through sheer bloody-minded determination. And then silence. The Doom engine, this monument to universal termination, this cosmic predator that has devoured civilizations, stops. Its shields collapse, its weapons power down. Its crew, well, whatever's left of its crew probably wishes they called in sick that day. The galaxy's final boss, reduced to scrap metal and cosmic regret. Victory, or what passes for victory when you're operating with Fernando's definition of success. This is the end of our journey. Not with explosions or fanfare, but with the quiet dismantling of the final boss. Fernando stands in his command room, staring at debris that was once the ultimate threat, while Jeff presumably celebrates by not accidentally shooting himself. The path ahead leads to the Vault of Souls itself, the final destination, the reason for everything. We drift through the gateway, past the wreckage of our final enemy, into a space that feels different. The stars here don't shine quite right. The void between them pulses with colors that don't have names. This isn't just another system, this is the destination, the culmination, the place where journeys end and others begin. According to the text that appears, because apparently cosmic revelation comes with mandatory poetry. We find ourselves before a grand altar ablaze with argent fire. The flames dance without fuel, burn without heat, cast light that illuminates more than what's visible. They speak without words, sing without sound, whisper truths that mortal minds weren't designed to process. Fernando approaches, not because he understands what's happening, but because this is what you do. This is what the journey was always leading towards. Every battle, every upgrade, every decision that seemed like a player choice. All of it was just the galaxy guiding its latest meal towards the table. He plunges his hand into the flames. The searing heat of eternity washes over Fernando and his crew. Over Jeff, who finally looks competent in the face of transcendence.
over the psychers whose magic suddenly seems quaint compared to whatever this is, over every crew member who survived the journey from broken ship refugees to inadvertent harbingers of cosmic change. Our souls sublimate into the infinite ether. The text uses that word specifically. Sublimate. Not destroyed, not consumed, not even transformed. Sublimated. Converted directly from solid matter to cosmic vapor, skipping all the messy intermediate steps of mortality. We herald the age of pandemonium, whatever the actual fuck that means. The victory screen displays with all the pomp and ceremony of a normal game ending. Fernando's vessel and its crew have emerged victorious. Our accomplishments have been enshrined within the Vault of Souls. High scores recorded, achievement unlocked. Thanks for playing. But there's something wrong with this victory, something that makes the triumph feel like a punchline to a cosmic joke that Fernando never understood he was a part of. Because we didn't save the galaxy. We didn't restore order to a fractured empire. We didn't even really win in any meaningful sense. Fernando's grand journey of cosmic significance, every clever tactical decision, every hard-fought battle, every crew member saved from certain death, it all culminated in his literal soul being consumed by eldritch forces, while reality itself transitions into something called the Age of Pandemonium, which sounds like the kind of cosmic event that comes with its own disclaimer about voiding warranties on existence itself. The galaxy was never broken. It was never in need of saving. It was hungry. It was always hungry. And every ship that made this journey, every captain who thought they were the protagonist of their own story, every crew that fought their way to the Vault of Souls, they were all just courses in an endless feast. Fernando didn't beat the game. He fed it. He fed it his crew, his ship, his ambitions, and finally, himself. The Age of Pandemonium isn't the victory condition. It's the dessert course. You don't win Void War. You don't fix anything. You ascend screaming, your soul reduced to fuel in the galaxy's digestive tract, while Jeff presumably continues to miss his shots in whatever passes for an afterlife. Your victory becomes the universe's meal. Your journey becomes its entertainment. Your choices become its seasoning. The Vault of Souls isn't a destination. It's a mouth. Welcome to the Age of Pandemonium. Population, whatever's left after Fernando fed the universe to itself. One perfectly optimized boarding action at a time. The galaxy was hungry. Fernando fed it well. And somewhere in the void, something ancient and terrible is already setting the table for the next course. Let's step back from Fernando's cosmic catastrophe for a moment and talk about what's actually happening here. Because beneath all the jokes about Jeff's incompetence and Fernando's terrible decision-making lies something genuinely disturbing about how Void War understands the nature of existence itself. Every mechanic in this game, every single system, from crew management to resource allocation to the victory condition itself, is designed around one central concept: consumption. Not just the obvious consumption of enemies destroying each other, but the deeper, more insidious consumption of the player by the game's own narrative structure. Think about it. In FTL, you're trying to deliver crucial data to save the Federation. Your journey has purpose, meaning, a clear moral framework. You are the good guy fighting against an overwhelming enemy force, and your victory represents hope for a free galaxy. Even when you fail, and you will fail repeatedly, that failure feels meaningful because the stakes are clear and the cause is just. In Void War, you think you're on a journey of ascension, of cosmic significance. You're gathering power, building your crew, optimizing your ship, making hard choices that feel meaningful. The game presents all the familiar rhythms of player agency and character progression. But every step forward is actually a step deeper into something that was always designed to consume you. The difference is subtle, but crucial. FTL asks you to become a better tactician, a more efficient problem solver, a more capable commander. Void War asks you to become a more appetizing meal. The hunger isn't metaphorical, well, it is, but it's also mechanical. The crew expansion follows this pattern perfectly. You don't recruit new members through diplomacy or inspiration. The closest thing to that is buying them from the shop. You find them in the wreckage of destroyed ships, collect them from the aftermath of disasters, salvage them from the ruins of their previous lives. They're not joining your cause, they're being absorbed into your ship's ecosystem, becoming part of a larger organism that's pretending to be a military vessel. Each new crew member represents both increased capability and increased investment in a system that was always designed to consume everything you put into it. The engineer who improves your repair efficiency, the psyker who provides magical support, even Jeff with his BTech and public service. They're all just additional ingredients being added to a recipe that the galaxy has been perfecting for aeons. And the factions, the pirates, the /corsairs, the cultists, the techno-priests. They're not enemies in any traditional sense, I mean they are, but they're other digestive systems, other feeding mechanisms in the galaxy's vast metabolic process. When they attack you, they're not trying to defeat you strategically, they're trying to process you, to break you down into component parts that can be reintegrated into the larger system. The blood oath that Fernando takes, pledging himself to the God of War, isn't character development, it's seasoning. The galaxy is literally flavoring its meal, adding spice to what would otherwise be a bland consumption process. Fernando thinks he's gaining power, accessing forbidden knowledge, aligning himself with cosmic forces that will help him achieve his goals. But the nightmares he experiences afterward, the inability to rest and heal, those aren't side effects of divine power, they're symptoms of preparation. Signs that his consciousness is being slowly broken down, more suitable for cosmic digestion. The God of War isn't empowering him, it's tenderizing him. This is what makes Void War genuinely unsettling in ways that go beyond surface level horror. It's not just telling a story about a universe that wants to eat you. It's demonstrating through its mechanical design how easily we can be convinced to participate. Every choice you make, every upgrade you purchase, every weapon you equip, every crew member you recruit feels like progress, feels like building towards something meaningful. The game rewards you for these choices with better stats, more powerful abilities, expanded tactical options. You're getting stronger, more capable, more ready to face whatever challenges await. The Age of Pandemonium that Fernando heralds isn't the collapse of order. It's the universe finally dropping the pretense that any of this was ever about individual agency or heroic achievement. It's the moment when the cosmic digestive system reveals itself, when the galaxy stops pretending to be a setting and acknowledges what it's always been. A predator sophisticated enough to convince its prey to season themselves. Void War asks a question that most games are too polite to pose, and not fucking insane. What even is this reading? Well, what was I on when I wrote this? What if the universe isn't indifferent to your existence, but actively invested in it? Not because you matter, but because you're nourishing. What if every story of heroic achievement is actually just a feeding process optimized for maximum psychological impact? Fernando thought he was writing his own story, but the galaxy was writing him. And now the story is over, digested, integrated into something larger and hungrier than individual consciousness can comprehend. The mechanics of hunger, it turns out, are indistinguishable from the mechanics of hope. And somewhere in the void, the next Fernando is just beginning to learn how to optimize his weapon systems, completely unaware that he's actually just learning how to properly season himself for the feast. But there's another layer to this cosmic horror that cuts deeper than galactic predation or economic systems of consumption. It's the madness that comes with repetition. The burden of knowledge that persists while everything else resets. The weight of command, when command means learning to see souls as interchangeable components in an infinite procedural nightmare. Every death resets the galaxy, but not you. You remember, Fernando dies screaming as his soul sublimates into cosmic fuel. But you, the player, the observer, the one pulling the strings, you start over with meta-knowledge while the universe shuffles its deck and deals you a completely different hand. This time, it's not Fernando, it's Captain Vex the cyberneticist, piloting a different ship with a different crew roster generated by an algorithm that doesn't care about narrative consistency. Last run, Jeff is gone, replaced by some random techno-priest whose name you won't bother learning because you know they're temporary. This is the real horror of the roguelike structure. It's not about specific attachments, it's about the systematic destruction of your ability to form specific attachments. Each run teaches you that the individual identity is just cosmetic flavor wrapped around mechanical functions. The names change, the faces change, but the tactical roles remain identical. You stop seeing crew members as people and start seeing them as randomly generated assets. Shield operator, boarding specialist, expendable meatbag number 47. The algorithm provides different combinations of the same basic components, and you have to learn to evaluate them purely based on their statistical utility, rather than any narrative investment. The burden of command isn't about making hard choices about specific individuals, it's about developing tactical thinking patterns that work regardless of which procedurally generated crew the galaxy decides to give you this time. You learn to optimize for abstract roles rather than concrete personalities, because concrete personalities are just RNG flavor that will be different next run anyway. The first time you sacrifice a crew member, you feel bad about it. The 10th time you feel bad about a different crew member in a similar situation. The 50th time, you realize you're not feeling bad about individuals anymore, you're feeling bad about role archetypes, about tactical categories, about the abstracted concept of X crew member who fills X function and must be sacrificed to Y strategic benefit. This creates a more insidious form of dehumanization. You don't become numb to specific people, you become numb to the concept of people as anything more than randomly distributed mechanical properties. The game teaches you to think like a procedural algorithm. This crew slot needs someone with repair skills, this slot needs boarding capability, this slot needs to be expendable for tactical emergencies. You develop meta strategies that treat crew composition like a deck building exercise. Which random crew spawns represent good tactical opportunities? Which RNG outcomes mean you should restart immediately because the procedural generation gave you a suboptimal starting position? But here's what makes it truly maddening. You can't even develop consistent emotional responses because the targets of those emotions keep changing. You can't hate Jeff specifically because next time there might not even be a Jeff. You can't love that Imperial Marshal because next run you might be a Chaos Cultist instead. The game systematically destroys your ability to form coherent narrative relationships within its own content. Every emotional investment you make gets invalidated by the next run's randomization, training you to stop making emotional investments entirely. Your accumulated knowledge becomes a burden rather than an advantage. You remember the patterns, the optimal strategies, the weapon combinations that work, but you also remember dozens of different crews, different ships, different starting scenarios that all lead to the same ultimate destination. You develop pattern recognition that transcends individual runs. This type of encounter requires this type of response, regardless of which randomly generated crew you have available. This enemy faction has these weaknesses, regardless of which procedurally assembled ship you're piloting. The illusion of variety masks the horror of repetition. The game presents infinite combinations of the same basic elements, creating the appearance of fresh experiences while actually training you to ignore surface-level differences in favor of deeper mechanical patterns. You start seeing through the procedural generation to the underlying systems, and those systems are always the same. Different ships, same tactical challenges. Different crew, same sacrifice calculations. Different name, same ultimate consumption by cosmic forces that don't care about individual identity, because individual identity is just randomized cosmetic data layered over consistent mechanical functions. This is what makes Void War genuine psychological horror, rather than just cosmic horror. It's not about losing specific people you care about, it's about learning that caring about specific people is inefficient when those people are just randomly generated variables in an equation that always solves to the same answer. The game teaches you to think like the universe itself, statistically, abstractly, with perfect indifference to individual traits, because individual traits are just procedural noise obscuring deeper patterns of optimization. Void War isn't about being a hero. Heroes get consistent narratives, where their relationships matter and their choices have consequences. Heroes exist in authored worlds where individual identity shapes destiny. Void War is about dragging yourself through procedurally generated scenarios that simulate meaning while training you to see past the simulation to the mechanical reality underneath. It's about learning to optimize for victory while everything else, name, faces, starting positions, crew compositions, shifts randomly around you. By the time you've truly mastered the game, you've learned to think like the generation system itself, efficiently sorting randomly distributed elements into optimal configurations without ever becoming attached to any specific configuration. The captain's madness isn't about remembering specific losses. It's about learning to see every possible crew, every possible ship, every possible starting scenario as nothing more than a randomly shuffled combination of the same basic elements, all leading to the same cosmic fate. The galaxy doesn't drive you insane. It teaches you to think like it thinks. Procedurally, optimally, with perfect indifference to individual identity, because individual identity is just cosmic variation layered over identical mechanical functions. And somewhere in the void, another randomly generated captain is about to learn that their procedurally assembled crew is just as doomed as every other procedurally assembled crew, guided by a player who's learned to see past the randomization to the constants underneath. So here we are, at the end of Fernando's journey, from broke Imperial exile with a ship held together by prayers and duct tape, to cosmic horror catalyst, whose soul now exists as seasoning in the universe's eternal digestive process. It's been quite a ride. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night, staring at the ceiling while my brain processes what I've just witnessed. Fernando's story isn't over. Not really. Because the Vault of Souls doesn't just consume, it preserves, it enshrines. It takes every journey, every choice, every moment of desperate hope and significance, and makes it part of something larger. Fernando is still out there, in whatever the Age of Pandemonium represents. Not dead, not exactly alive, but integrated into the galaxy's consciousness like a memory that refuses to fade. His terrible decision-making, Jeff's incompetence, the moment he decided to pledge his soul to the god of war. All of it preserved forever in cosmic amber. A perfect record of how mortals convince themselves they're writing their own story, while actually just following a recipe. And the galaxy is still hungry. Right now, as I speak, another ship is launching from another dying world. Another captain is looking at their pathetic weapons loadout and thinking, well, at least I have a macro lens. Another crew is standing around aimlessly while their leader forgets to reassign them after a boarding action, because apparently cosmic horror doesn't cure basic command incompetence. There's something beautiful and terrible about this cycle. Each new Fernando thinks they're unique, special, the protagonist of their own story. They optimize their ships, recruit their crews, make their deals with entities that definitely have their best interests at heart. They feel that rush of progression, that satisfaction of turning a flying death trap into an efficient killing machine. And they're not wrong. They are special. Each journey through the void is genuinely unique, genuinely meaningful. The galaxy doesn't want mass-produced meals. It wants artisanal suffering, carefully crafted desperation, custom-tailored hope, prepared with individual attention and garnished with personal tragedy. The game will still be there tomorrow, ready for another run, ready for another captain to discover the joys of boarding actions and the devastating effectiveness of siege bombardments, ready for another crew to stumble through the tutorial, make terrible decisions, and somehow convince themselves they're making progress towards a goal that definitely isn't their own. And maybe that's the real horror. Not that Fernando's journey ended in cosmic consumption, but that it feels so good to take that journey. The mechanics are genuinely satisfying, the progression feels meaningful, the moment when your siege bombard comes online and starts trivializing encounters you previously found challenging. That's a real rush, a genuine sense of accomplishment. The galaxy has designed the perfect trap, a feeding process that feels like victory, a consumption mechanism that generates its own justification, a digestive system that convinces its nutrients to season themselves while feeling grateful for the privilege. I keep thinking about Jeff, poor incompetent Jeff with his BTEC in public service and his uncanny ability to miss shots at point-blank range. Even he got his moment of cosmic significance when his soul sublimated into the infinite ether. Even he became part of something larger than his individual failures and modest aspirations. There's a weird comfort in that, in knowing that no matter how badly you fuck up, no matter how many tactical errors you make, or crew members you lose to preventable accidents, the universe still wants you, still considers your particular flavor of disaster worth preserving for eternity. So what have we learned from Fernando's adventure? That competence is just delayed incompetence? That victory is just delayed consumption? That the galaxy's greatest tricks is convincing us that we're the customer when we're actually the product? Maybe. Or maybe we've learned something simpler. That even in a universe designed to eat you, the journey still matters. The choices still count. The relationships you build with your crew, even if they include Jeff, still have meaning. Even if that meaning eventually gets processed into fuel. The galaxy is hungry. It's always been hungry. It will always be hungry. but it's also patient and sophisticated and weirdly respectful of the stories it consumes. It doesn't just want your soul, it wants your soul prepared exactly the way you choose to prepare it, seasoned with your own decisions, garnished with your own hopes and fears and terrible choices. Fernando fed the galaxy well, not just with his soul, but with his journey, with his optimism in the face of horror, with his ability to look at a blood oath to an eldritch war god and think, this seems like a reasonable decision. With his willingness to venture into hell because the loot might be better there. And somewhere in the void, the next Fernando is just booting up the tutorial, ready to learn that Jeff has a BTEC in public service and that macro lances are really quite good once you figure out how to use them. The feast never ends, but hey, at least this time, maybe Jeff won't twist his ankle while fleeing from eldritch abominations. The galaxy hungers, the table is set, and there's always room for one more. Welcome to the void. Enjoy your stay. Oh, okay, I'm getting this over quickly because it's like 47 billion degrees in my room and I want to be out of here ASAP. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. The script made no sense. No, I was quite a fan of the script, but I'm not going to pretend that it made any sense and that it wasn't a reach. But who cares? I had fun. As always, I'd like to thank the channel members and the Patreon. Actually, wait, first, before I do that, if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. This video is a departure in style, I do admit, but if I keep ramming the same out over and 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 over again, I will off myself. Joking. But yes, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Like and subscribe if you didn't. Like and subscribe if you found it mediocre. Just like and subscribe, please. I like numbers going up. Makes my dopamine receptors go high. Woo, yippee! Okay, so as always, I'd like to thank the channel members and the Patreons, and of course being the Milkman, Flapjack, Camera Chameleon, Vested Voice, Copper Boltwire, Rasalki Ryler, Will Provine, Reese Lunn, Aroxano, Vinicus Franca, A Brick Wall, Ash Crowing, Adrian Nerium, Crit Croc, My Horror Project, Proxy, and Icebear. Thank you all so much for the support. Truly means the world to me. And if any of you want to be included in this list at the end or get access to the brand new part 1 of the Q&A, then make sure to check out channel memberships or the Patreon. Either or, membership probably cheaper. Patreon supports me more because I get more of the cut because YouTube is greedy. Don't tell them I said that, they're very greedy. But yes, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.